In this video, I'm going to show you how I painted my Aeldari Guardians. Hello everyone, and welcome to another brushstroke painting guide, where this time I'm going to take you through the steps I took for painting this Aeldari Guardian in the Craft World colour scheme of, now excuse the pronunciation, I'm going to go with Yme-Loc. If you do know how it is actually pronounced, then please do put it in the comments below. It's probably the last time I'm going to say it in this video, but it actually came about because Games Workshop very kindly sent me a preview copy of the Aeldari Guardians box set for me to paint up for a Warhammer community painting article they were doing. If you didn't happen to catch it, then it's definitely worth checking out actually, because some of the painting on there from other artists is absolutely amazing. I'll put a link in the description below for you to check out later. But now back to this colour scheme, and before we start I just want to say a few things, and the first one is, as always, thank you very much to everyone who has subscribed and followed my channel so far. Really do appreciate your support, and it's because of you that I'm able to make these videos, so thank you so much for that. If you're new to my channel or you haven't subscribed yet, then please do hit that subscribe button now, and don't forget the notification bell to be told whenever I post another video. But with that said, now you've clicked those buttons, let's carry on and start off with some painting. And first off, I need to mention there's a few key things that I wanted to focus on to try and make this paint scheme work. The first one was I wanted it to be really smooth, so I put a lot of effort into the preparation of this model. If you'd like to see more about that, then please do check out my how to prepare models video. And the second thing is I want the colours to be very bright and vivid. So for this I've done a black primer with a light grey zenithal highlight, and I've made sure I've put a lot of that zenithal on so that it's really bright, and this should help keep the colours really vivid. So starting off then, I'm going to start with a base coat to all the armour with some Dawnstone from Games Workshop. Now this is probably the most important stage in the whole of this painting scheme, and that's because this Dawnstone is the most prominent colour in the whole of the colour scheme. And it's really important that you get this paint down nice and thin and nice and smoothly, because it's going to be the final finish for the model. So you need to add a touch of water so that the paint is flowing really smooth from the brush, and you need to build it up in 2 layers so that you get a nice clean, smooth, solid colour. So you don't need to be particularly neat with this stage, because any details that you paint over we'll be painting in again later anyway. Just concentrate on getting the paint down nice and cleanly and smoothly. Now you'll notice I'm painting this model as sub-assemblies. If you'd like to know more reasons as to why I do that, then please do check out the preparation video I mentioned before. But for the purpose of this video, it's mainly just so that you can see what I'm painting. But if you're doing the same, then do make sure that you paint the Dawnstone onto all of those parts as well. With the armour looking really nice already, I'm going to move on and paint in some details now, starting off with all the leather items, pouches and the like, and for this I'm going to use some Abaddon Black from Games Workshop. Just as with the Dawnstone before, this has a little bit of water to help the paint flow nice and smoothly. Now I'm going to paint in these details, and I'm going to be trying to be really careful to make sure that I don't get it onto any of the Dawnstone that I've already painted. But if you do make any mistakes, then don't panic, just let it dry and then go back over again with some Dawnstone to tidy everything back up again. Okay, for the next step I'm going to base coat in these ammo clips and some detailing on the gun, and for this I'm going to use Eshin Grey from Games Workshop. Now exactly the same process as before, a little bit of water to help that paint flow nice and smooth, and just take your time to be as neat and careful as possible. If you do make any mistakes, then just let it dry and correct it again with the colour necessary. So for the rifle, I think I'm going to pick out the inner casing here with this Eshin Grey, and of course the ammo clip part as well. I think I'll also painting the handle and the hose that attaches to the arm, and it looks like there's also a hand grip on the front neck of the rifle as well. There's also this ridge at the back, which I think I'll paint in Eshen Grey, and not really sure if it's a barrel or what, but there's a little square at the front which I'll paint in Eshen Grey as well. Sticking with the rifle, I'm going to carry on base coating the rest of the casing now, and for this I'm going to use Incubi Darkness from Games Workshop. Now I've added some water to this, and just looking at it, I think I've added a little bit too much, if I'm honest. Let's just keep trying that for a bit. Yeah, okay, that's actually a good example of having a little bit too much water there. So I'm just going to go back and get a little bit more paint into my mix, and then let's try that. Yeah, that's looking a lot better. Okay, so it has a little bit of water, and I'm just going to apply this all over the casing to get a nice, clean, smooth finish. Moving on now to the next step, and this is going to be painting in all of the metal details, including these ridges on the side, details around the leather work and the bottom of these ammo magazines, some details on the back here, and don't forget these little fin things on the side of the arms and legs. And for this I'm going to use Warp-Lock Bronze from Games Workshop. For the metallics, I'm actually going for quite a muted copper colour, but I need to establish quite a dark underlay first because the colour I want to use is quite thin. So I'm going to paint in all the details with this Warp-Lock Bronze first. It's a really nice colour and it has great coverage, so you'll only need to do one coat, but you still need a little bit of water just to thin it down. On the rifle here, I'm going to paint these bumps in as metallics, just because I'm painting a squad of them and I'm a bit time pushed, but if you wanted to go all out and paint these in as gemstones, I think that would look absolutely fantastic. So I'm taking my time and I'm being as neat as I can, but as before, if you do make any mistakes, then just let it dry fully and neaten it back up again with the colour you need. Now I've base coated in all of those metal details with the bronze colour, I'm going to paint over them all again with some Hashut Copper from Games Workshop. I completely appreciate that this seems like nonsense, painting them in with one colour and then painting it all over again with another, but believe me, there is method to this madness. Because the Hashut Copper is actually quite thin, it's useful to have that darker colour underneath, and it means in the long run you're actually going to do less coats. If you're going to try and do just the Hashut Copper on its own, you'd probably end up doing maybe 3-4 coats. Whereas with the bronze underneath, you only need to add one layer of the Hashut Copper and it will give you that really bright, shiny copper that you want. And actually you can leave some of the bronze underneath showing to give some edges and some shadow too. Next, it's time to make a start on all of those orange details, and for this I'm going to start with a base coat of Jericho Orange from Games Workshop. Orange is one of those colours that can be quite tricky sometimes, especially when you're going for a really bright, punchy orange, but you want it really clean and smooth. So the best way I've found is to start with a colour like this Jericho Orange, which has good coverage, and then you can build up from there with different glazes to add that vibrancy. So with that in mind, what I've done is I've thinned this a little bit more than usual with some water, and I'm applying it as 2 thin layers just to get that coverage, but also to keep it super smooth. The helmets in particular are important to keep really smooth because they're quite a focal point of the model. So I found that the best way to do this was to not overwork the paint. I worked from the bottom of the helmet up to the point and then never went over the paint more than once to try and make sure that it settled on its own and kept itself really smooth. Okay, with that orange foundation now established, I'm going to build up the vibrancy by adding a glaze of Trollslayer Orange from Games Workshop. Okay, so what's glazing? Well, glazing is basically just painting but with very thin layers. Now the advantage of this is that with each layer you can still see the colour underneath and you can build up some very soft and smooth transitions. In this particular case I've thinned down the Trollslayer Orange so that it's very similar to a wash, and as I apply it you can still see the colour underneath. Now as I'm applying it I'm actually just tinting the surface, and it's that's adding the vibrancy from the Troll Slayer orange to the base coat that I've got underneath. Think of it as applying a wash, but instead of it getting darker you're actually making it brighter. Unlike a wash though, I don't want to encourage it to settle into any of the recesses. In fact, all I'm trying to do is get a very even coverage over the whole of the surface, and if anything I'm trying to concentrate it on the topmost parts and the edges where it would be brightest. So you should find you only need to add one coat of this to start building that vibrancy, but because it's similar to a wash you will need to let it dry fully before moving on to the next stage. Right, that orange is already looking a lot brighter, so let's add another glaze to make it brighter still, and this time I'm going to use Orange Fire from Vallejo. Again, I'm applying this as a glaze, so I'm just looking to wet the surface. I've thinned the paint down so it's the consistency of a wash. Now I did use water. In hindsight, this paint is actually very easy for it to separate, so if I was going to do it again I would probably use something like Lamy Medium from Games Workshop to thin it. So I'm just going to repeat the process that I've just done, but I'm going to leave a little bit showing so that I can get a transition, and I'm going to focus this more towards the top edges and the outermost points of each of the panels. Moving on now, I'm just going to turn my attention to the face panel on the helmet, and I'm going to start off by base coating that with Ulthorn Grey from Games Workshop. Now the main thing to remember for this step is you want to keep it really smooth, so I've thinned the paint down quite a lot and I applied 2 thin layers. Don't worry about being particularly neat at this stage because we'll tidy all that up again later, just concentrate on getting it nice and smooth. So now I'm going to run a shadow line around the faceplate, and for this I'm going to use Celestra Grey from Games Workshop. The aim of this step really is just to establish a shadow around the outside of the white, and all I'm doing is I'm letting the paint run into the groove and basically form that shadow. One last step now on the faceplate, and that's just going to be painting in the eye lenses, and for this I'm going to use some Nocturne Green from Games Workshop. What I've done is I've thinned the paint down with water, so now it has a consistency of a wash, and I'm just going to flood each of the eye sockets with the paint. And when that's dry, it's time to go back and neaten up all the edges with some orange. Now that we've got all of the base colours in, it's time to start adding some shade to the model. I'm going to start off with the orange, and for this I'm going to use a 50-50 mix of Fugant Orange and Lamy Medium from Games Workshop. Now the aim of this step is not a heavy wash by any means. In fact, actually you kind of keep it quite light, so just encourage the wash to settle into the recesses and all the areas that you'd like to be darker. For example, on this chest panel, I'm going to apply the shade over all of the panel, and then using my brush, I'm going to encourage the shade to settle more towards the bottom, and then that will darken that area and increase that 3D effect. On the helmet, I'm going to add it just to the bottom half and around any of these details where it needs more definition, especially around the back here where that indent is, that really needs to be darker shadowed too. While that orange wash is drying, I'm going to apply a wash to all of the Eshin Grey, Abaddon Black and the copper details, and for this I'm going to use Null Oil from Games Workshop. Nothing very complicated about this step, just apply the wash over all of those details, let it run into all of the creases and the recesses, adding that shadow and depth. Try and be as neat as you can, but if you do make any mistakes, let it fully dry and then just tidy back up again with whichever colour you need. Not forgetting to apply the wash onto any sub-assembly parts, such as the rifle here, and when you are done, don't forget to let the wash fully dry before moving on to the next stage. And that next stage is going to be applying a recess shade to all of the grey armour, and for this I'm going to use some Eshin Grey thinned down with some Lamium Medium from Games Workshop. Now I've thinned the Eshin Grey down with the Lamium Medium so that it's now flowing like a wash, and I'm just going to apply it into just the recesses and the creases of the armour just to give that extra shadow. You will find that this stage is actually quite messy and it's quite difficult to keep it just within those areas, so the best thing to do is to make sure you get the paint into the areas you want, and then when you're fully happy with it, then you can go back and tidy everything back up with some Dawnstone. For example, whilst painting this recess here, I've managed to get the Eshin Grey onto the knee pad. It's not a problem, I'm going to let it dry and finish all the Eshin Grey recesses, and then when I'm happy I can come back and I'll tidy everything back up again. Now I'm happy with the recess shading with that Eshin Grey. I'm just going to work my way around the model with some thinned down Dawnstone just to tidy everything up and make it really neat. Next we're going to highlight the model, and we're going to start off by brightening up all those orange details by applying a glaze of orange fire from Vallejo. This time I'm not going to glaze the whole panel, I'm just going to focus on these outside edges which I want to be brighter. And then on the chest panels I just want the very top part to be bright. Finally, to finish off the orange, I'm going to apply an edge highlight now, and for this I'm going to use Bestigor Flesh from Games Workshop. The aim here is just to add a highlight to all of the edges of the orange panels. So in this case I'm just using the edge of my brush just to run along this sharp edge here. The main thing here really is just to take your time and not to try and rush doing these edge highlights. If you do struggle though and you would like some more tips and tricks on how to do edge highlighting, then please do check out the link above to my how to edge highlight video. Sticking with the edge highlighting, next we're going to move on to all the Incubi Darkness details, and for this I'm going to use some Thunderhawk Blue from Games Workshop. Exactly the same process again then, just work your way around slowly, taking your time, picking out all of those edges with your Thunderhawk Blue. Moving on now to the next edge highlight, and this is going to be to all of the grey armour panels, and for this I'm going to use Administratum Grey from Games Workshop. Exactly the same as the last two steps, it's more edge highlighting. Again, take your time, work your way around the model, pick out all those edges. It's definitely worth not rushing at this stage because this is the one that really helps the model pop. If you do make any mistakes though, it's dead easy, you can correct it, just let it dry, and then you can tidy things back up again with some Dawnstone. Just a few details to finish off, starting with these armbands. Now I decided to do them in green, and I'm going to use Sons of Horus green from Games Workshop. And to finish those off, I'm going to do an edge highlight of Cyberite Green from Games Workshop. So that just leaves the final detail to paint in, which is the gems, and I'm going to start off with a base coat of Nocturne Green from Games Workshop. So start off by painting in the whole of the gem with the Nocturne Green. And then paint in the bottom right hand corner, about a third of the way up, with Sons of Horus Green. Try not to paint a straight line across the gem, but instead paint it as a crescent moon shape, with the indent pointing towards the bottom corner. And now I'm going to paint in the bottom half of that shape with some Cyberite Green, leaving the Sons of Horus Green showing above. And then finally, I paint a line on the very bottom right hand edge of Ghostblaster Green from Games Workshop. To finish off, a dot of pure white, and don't forget to do the same on the lenses for the helmet. Now all you need to do is assemble the model and base it, and your Aeldari Guardian is complete. I really hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, then please hit that like button. It really helps the channel and it helps me make more of these videos. If you'd like to see more 40k content, then please drop a comment below and let me know what you'd like to see. Don't forget, there's a paint bundle and links to all the paints I've used in the description below, so please check those out too. If you've not subscribed yet, then please hit that subscribe button and don't forget the notification bell to be told whenever I post another video. But thanks again for watching, and I hope to see you in another video very soon.